Today I'm going to break down the 3 decisions I made in my 20s and the exact math of how I saved an extra $101,000 and how it contributed greatly to a multi-six-figure net worth in my late 20s. This is not clickbait. I'm literally just going to dive into the numbers behind my living situations throughout my 20s. I'll discuss the places I lived, the cars I bought, and I want to really paint a picture to show how important it is to not fall for materialism early in life and how normal idiots like me can gain money. Some of it's dumb luck, and to be honest, I'm not even sure I'd recommend some of these decisions I made, as sometimes I could have put my health or safety on the line at times, but we're going to discuss this regardless. I firmly believe that my cheap decisions in my 20s gave me this huge advantage that gave me freedom to stress less, go travel, and live the life I want to. Anything done early in life has compounding effects. So now let's dig into the math. I'm going to look at my decisions and then pit them up against societal averages for living situations, cars, and more. So here is our savings counter, and we're going to start this counter at $0. We're going to start when I was 22 at January of 2019 when I started my first full-time job. I'm 28 now, so this has been about a 6-7 year process. Keep in mind, at 22, I had an entry-level software engineering job making over $70K. At this point, many people would ball out, elevate their lifestyle after college, after living cheap forever, move to a nicer place, get a nice car, but here are the decisions I made instead. So decision 1. From age 18 to 23, I lived with a lot of roommates. For the purposes of this study, we're only going to be focusing on when I was 22 and 23. So after I graduated university at age 22, I still lived with 4 people from university, 4 friends, and even shared a room with one of my friends, despite being a professional and going to a job while he was still in school. But I didn't really care. I didn't want my rent to double. So due to this, my rent was a measly $475 a month, even living in a city. And then next year, when I was 23, we wanted to switch places. A couple of my college buddies were still in school, but I graduated a year early. So instead of going get my own nice place, which I could comfortably afford, I thought I could still live like a college kid a little while longer. So a few of us switched places. This time I had my own room, but it was in a very low-end duplex with 6 other people, and rent was about $500 a month for me. Now, this place was not the best. The floors were slanted, there was some rat problems, there was very poor heating in the Wisconsin winter, and I'm not sure I'd recommend living like that, but that's just what I did. It wasn't even the best area. Like one time we woke up and there was a homeless guy sleeping on our porch, and that's just not a conversation you want to have when you wake up in the morning. So I had to work within their budgets because they were broke college kids, and I had a job at that point, so I was not one of those anymore. The place I lived literally looked like this on the inside. This isn't an actual photo, but I saw this on the internet, and just the floor, the walls totally reminded me of the place. Not very good. Many people our age, when they finally get that stable job, they move out, they get a nicer place, and this can run upwards of $1,000 a month for your own place, plus the other hidden costs of when you're not living with roommates, you're not sharing things like food, you're not sharing utility costs, and much more. Choosing to live cheaply and live with many roommates definitely saved me a lot of money. Given that rents, if you had your own place or a nicer place, was easily going to run me upwards of $1,000 a month, plus the cost of not sharing utilities, I estimated that I conservatively saved about $500 a month doing this. Even though in reality this number was likely much higher due to the cost of not sharing things like rent, utilities, and more. I also shared a room with someone, and then after that I just lived in a total crap hole. But for this study, we're going to be conservative with our numbers and stick to $500 per month saved. So I lived with these roommates from January 2019 to March of 2020. This is about a year and 3 months, 15 months. We're going to multiply that by $500 per month equals $7,500 in total savings. Going to add that to the savings counter. Living with roommates can really be a great way to save money, especially when you're young. And honestly, who cares? Like as long as they're good roommates and they're responsible and reasonable and they fit your lifestyle, it can be great. I mean, I did this till I was 23. Don't regret it for a second. So I'm past that point now, and I think I'm done living with roommates, but it can be fun. It make life more interesting and save you some cheddar in the long run. Decision number 2, buying cheap cars in cash. So you don't need to go out and get a multi-5-figure car to get by. So let's take a look at some numbers of the average cost of a used car right now. I'm not even talking about new cars because some people go out and buy that when they get a job too. Looks like from a couple different sources, between $20,000 and $30,000 seems to be the average price of a used car. So even on the low end, a used car can be $26,000, and plus interest if you're on a loan, it will likely run you over $30K. So I decided not to do this. I didn't want to take on a loan when I was young just to have a car, and I'm a firm believer you can buy cheap, reliable cars for under 5 figures. So here's where a little bit of luck came into play. I got lucky buying a super cheap car that worked out early in college. So someone was literally just trying to get rid of their car, and my first car I literally paid $500 for. It had 200,000 miles. It was a 2003 Saab stick shift car, and they literally don't even make cars anymore. Saab does. That's just how bad the car brand was. The guy selling it to me literally told me, he's like, dude, this car might break down in a week. That's why I'm going to give it to you for so cheap, because you're completely taking the risk by taking this off my hands. And as a college kid, not really interested in my own health and safety, of course I said yes. It was $500. It was an opportunity I couldn't pass up at the time. It was so bad that the gas meter was broke. I had to just guess how much gas was in it. The lights didn't work real well at night, and it was definitely not a great car to drive in the snow. But it was stick shift and manual, so it was still kind of fun. Now, I don't recommend this level of the extreme, but you can still get pretty cheap cars. I don't recommend people to do what I did, because I was kind of an idiot sometimes. But here's where luck was involved too. I got lucky, and the car ran for a while without much maintenance, so it worked very well even though the car was in its later phase of its lifespan. Some maintenance, but not too many issues with it. So in America, the average car payment is about $700 per month, and we're going to go a little bit lower for a used car. It's about $500 a month for a used car. So I had this car from when I started working in January 2019 all the way to November of 2019 with my $500 car. So this is 11 months times $500 a month, minus the $500 I paid for the car, is about $5,000 saved total. So we're going to bump this up in the savings counter, which is now $12,500. Not bad. Driving older cars, as long as they're safe, can make sense in your early 20s. Now, I had this car until Thanksgiving 2019, when I was really kind of concerned with the safety of the car, and especially the bad lights and the inability to drive it in the wintertime in Wisconsin. So I got a better one for about $5,000. It had 120,000 miles on it, and I was actually able to sell the first car for the same price I got it, $500, just citing how old it was, but how reliable it was for me driving it all the time, despite the car's old age. No, I've had this car present day now. I've had it for this used car for 5 years and 2 months, so 62 months in total, times $500 a month, minus the cost of the car to buy it in cash, and then plus the sale of my old car, plus $500. This gives us an additional $26,500 of savings over this 5-year period. Now, there's still some repairs and like things like that, but I'm going to cancel this out for a few reasons. So I was lucky that there were very minimal car repairs outside of just normal maintenance that you'd have to have no matter what the car is. Also, insurance is much cheaper for these used cars with lower value, because you don't need to insure the actual value of the vehicle, just liability and stuff like that. So as you can see here, car cheapness from my age 22 to 28 likely saved me over $30,000, even with repairs and insurance factored in. So after living with roommates and cheap cars, we're now at $39,000 saved in the money counter. So that's not bad. Now, decision number 3 is when it gets fun, and I've talked about this a couple times on my channel. Many of you have heard it. Due to many reasons, I lived with my parents for about 3 years, a little bit less than 3 years in my 20s. I took a break in between to live in the city of Milwaukee for a few years. Then I moved back home before quitting my job and moving out again. I was lucky that I could live at home both during COVID, and that my other job was close enough to my parents' house to where it was within driving distance. Looking at average rent where I live and the cost of living alone, I conservatively saved $2,000 a month just each month I lived at home. Rent was around $1,500 in the city I worked in to live alone, plus more utility fees and no more food sharing. I estimate it to be about $2,000 a month I was saving, which is very reasonable and even conservative, I would say. So my first stint living at home, which began during COVID, was March of 2020 to November of 2021. This is about 21 months. 21 months times $2,000 a month is $42,000. Now we're at $81,000 saved. And then I moved back home from February of 2024 to November of 2024, which is 10 months. Tack on an extra $20,000. This brings the savings counter to $101,000. So there you have it. Think about this too. The stock market went up a lot from 2019 to 2025. 30%, 18%, 28%. Then it had a down year, then 26%, then 23%. So even though I saved an additional $101,000 on top of what I was already saving, I was investing in the stock market when stocks were much lower than they are now. I was buying into the stock market when the Dow was below 20,000 and the S&P was really low as well. So this all culminated in me getting a multi-six-figure net worth, really by making very simple and you could even say stupid decisions. So in reality, these simple decisions allowed me to save $100,000, but this turned into much more due to my investing, and just being cheap gave me a lot of freedom in my future. Now I could go into other details too. Never bought designer clothing. I limited food delivery apps. I especially later in my 20s, tried to minimize self-destructive habits in my late 20s, like drinking. And I'm not going crazy on eating out in expensive restaurants and stuff like that, but I'm not even factoring that into this calculation. This is all to say, normal people can save a lot by being cheap, especially in your early 20s. You don't need to go to the extremes that I did, but little decisions can go a long way. And this, of course, compounds a lot because in your 20s, you have plenty of time for your money to grow and work for you. I'm just some guy who did this, and you can too. There are many ways to get there. So there you have it, how I saved over $101,000 and how this eventually led to much more through investing in cheap lifestyle decisions. Let me know what decisions you made that helped you out in your life, and as always, thanks for watching, and good luck in your financial journey.